Okay, hold on. Let's hopefully. Are you sure wants to go? Right, let's do this.
On this episode of Motorsport recently, we look back at the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indy 500, the Coke 600, and the Berlin Eprix. This is Triple Crown Racing. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Motorsport Recently. My name is Jack McKenzie, and we have just come off one of the biggest and best weekends of motorsport for the year, which, of course, consisted of the Monaco Grand Prix, Indianapolis 500, Coke 600, and the Berlin Eprix. So we have an absolutely packed show tonight, and joining me on the mic to take you through it all are my usual partners in crime, Caitlin, Penny Commentary, and the wonderful Chris Whitfield. Hello to you guys.
Hey there, guys.
Racing hangover.
Oh,
Racing
Chris.
hangover, of course. And I can confirm that the milk famine in my household is over, so I'll be operating at peak performance. So we have an entire thing of milk in
By
the
the
cupboard.
way, one like equals one milk.
Yes. So you guys have sent. So I think one of the last videos had at least one like, and that has given us milk, which is excellent. I do apologize if my mic is a bit broken this week. However, it is probably better than the alternative of the rubbishy laptop mic on this. So just bear with us. And I also think we may have streamed some stuff that was supposed to be off air before, but whatever the case, we are live and we are about to get into the news. So shall we get into this then?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
All in favor, say aye.
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 So if you'd like to switch over to our IndyCar thing, and we can get our first story of the day started. And of course, that was a very, very interesting story. And by which that I mean the Indianapolis 500. We ready?
Yeah, sorry. You have to remember there's a slight delay on the screen, so I'm ready far
Yeah, of
before
course.
you see that I'm ready.
Right, let's get into the Indianapolis 500 then. Now that everybody had recovered from the drama of Bump Day, it was time for the featured presentation, the 103rd running of the Indianapolis 500. Simon Pagenaud led the field of 33 hopeful milk drinkers, considering that we were just talking about milk, so to the green flag. On the third lap, rookie Colton Herta's race came to a premature end with gearbox failure, forcing his car to stop in the warm-up lane in turn 3. During the first round of green flag pit stops, James Davison and Elio Castroneves collided, causing the Australian to spin. This also resulted in a penalty for Castroneves for avoidable contact. This became a theme throughout the race. The day came out when Kyle Kaiser, who had just squeaked into the field last weekend, spun in turn 4, ending his race. The pit lane dramas continued with first Will Power sliding into his pit box, rookie Jordan King striking his right front pit tire changer by pretty much launching his Firestone tire into the side of this person. So we do hope that everything turned out okay for that person. And finally, Marcus Ericsson spinning into the wall as he was slowing down into the pit lane. slowing down into the pit lane speed limit area on lap 147. Unfortunately, he couldn't blame Grosjean, and Grosjean could not blame Ericsson for this accident. This became a strategy race and was shaping up to be another fuel mileage battle, with Simon Pagenaud being the first to pit, with Scott Dixon, Felix Rosenqvist, and Alexander Rossi pitting between 6 and 8 laps after Pagenaud. The biggest surprise was Alexander Rossi, who snuck his Napa Honda into the top 3 and had taken the lead prior to the caution on lap 178. Was caused when Sebastian Bourdais and Graham Rahal went for the 2 cars in 1 corner strategy, which, and especially in the short shoot, that does not actually work. The crash also claimed Rosenqvist, Dixon, Charlie Kimball, and Zach Veach, so coincidentally, all of Pagenaud and Alexander Rossi's rivals. Of note, rookie Santino Ferrucci's avoidance of the crash ahead he avoided the crash ahead by going through the grass, and that was admirable to say the least. Now, say what you will about Santino Ferrucci. Chris, I know you're not particularly a fan of Santino Ferrucci, but undeniably, he drove brilliantly.
I actually am going to give him a little bit of credit here. That he did actually manage to squeak out a decent result. Plus, that moment will be on the his avoidance of the crash will be on the highlight reels for years to come.
I totally agree. I think that Ferrucci did drive a pretty good, a very good race, and he was the top rookie, but at the end of the day, that doesn't exactly make him a nice person.
Yeah, and as I've mentioned before, if Pastor Maldonado can win a race and Lance Stroll can get a podium, then there's hope for any rent-a-driver out there to actually get a good result.
Anyway, so that's just made me think that Santino Ferrucci could actually have a promising career as a gardener, as
or a lawnmower.
Honda. Wait, I've forgotten what engine Santino Ferrucci uses. Is it a Honda or Chevy?
Dale Coyne runs a Honda in that number 19.
Well, Honda do make lawnmowers, so I'm not sure if they put a blade on the bottom of that car to cut the grass. Anyway, this set up a wild 13-lap shootout to the Pagenaud and Rossi trading the lead back and forth, at which point my head actually exploded, and what followed was indecipherable babbling, as I was amazed by what was happening on my screen.
Yeah,
by
Jack
the way,
actually had a Jack, what you are just describing, by the way, you just had a scanners moment. Look up the film Scanners, where the guy's head, where Louis Del Grande's head explodes, and you'll get what I mean.
Oh yes, okay. I think I've heard of that. I haven't actually seen Scanners, but anyway. So yes, so that happened, and the lead went back and forward between these two guys. The final move was made by Pagenaud's fluorescent Menard Chevy, who used the draft to his advantage, and powered by Rossi with 3 laps to go. To win his must-be-said long-time sponsor and former entrant John Menard's first Indianapolis 500. And it was superb. That was a brilliant race. Rossi was second, with Takuma Sato scoring a very surprising third in his red and white MyJack. Ferrucci would, thanks to his 8th place finish, earn Rookie of the Year for this year's 500. The next race is, for the NTT Data IndyCar Series, is the doubleheader on the streets of Belle Isle, Detroit. Now, before anyone says anything, I was actually really happy because, Fox Sports in Australia actually broadcasted the full race on the day it was supposed to be broadcasted on, except the coverage was absolutely awful. But whatever the case, it was actually there, which I'm really happy about, and that race was incredible.
I watched the NBC coverage, and honestly, I have to say, like, having watched them on ABC the past few years, NBC's coverage is light years ahead of ABC stroke ESPN in terms of commentary, for one, in terms of not relying on gimmicks or filler, and also the fact that they were informed. And
I didn't like
and
the
it
fact
didn't
that they
look
had
cheap.
that the coverage in Australia had an ad break literally every 2 laps, which was not great.
That's the drawback of NBC, but that was the main complaint. I was talking with a fairly famous NASCAR YouTuber about that, and he said that the main complaint was the adverts, but you got to pay for it somehow. Plus, it's the Indianapolis 500. It's the biggest weekend for IndyCar, especially for ad revenue.
Anyway, we could probably go on about the broadcasting for ages, but I want to talk about that race.
That was genuinely another classic.
The last few laps of that race was some of the best racing I've ever seen in my life.
I have a friend.
Exciting racing I've seen in my life.
Yeah, I have a friend who was doing another race at the time, and I said to them after the race, "So are you going to watch the Indy 500 later?" And they were like, "Well, probably not. Was it good?" What the heck? You can't miss that. Like, goodness
That was
me.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's
friend a type of Is your friend that one person in the WTF1 comments who said IndyCar's just driving around in circles? It's too easy.
probably.
That basically describes 3/4 of WTF1's fan base.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we've just been banned from WTF1.
Yeah.
So long.
I have my own complaints
not
about
a big fan of
WTF1,
that.
but whatever the case. In terms of IndyCar, I think it was made so exciting at the end there by just the timing of the safety car. It came out at or the pace car, sorry, because it's Indy. It came out at just the right time so that you didn't end up with people on wildly different pit strategies and, people getting in the way or whatever. You just had a straight fight to the finish. It was just the right length. I think we had like 14 laps when we got underway again. It was just the right length. You had a couple of guys up front that could have won it. Pagenaud was in there with Rossi and Sato, and who else was up there? I think was it Newgarden?
Newgarden.
Yeah. I just think that you have to give credit to IndyCar for red flagging it when that accident happened, because they could very easily have finished it under safety car or done 1 or 2 laps of green flag racing at the end, but they didn't do that. They red flagged it. They made sure that we got a good dash to the finish, and yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to see.
Now, I'm one of those people actually that likes I actually kind of like fuel mileage races.
Oh, me
Like,
too.
and-
Me too.
Stuff can be really, really interesting. That reminds me of the Bathurst 12-hour last year when it almost came down to fuel mileage, except there was a massive crash.
Yeah, I will say that some of the best races I've seen have been mileage events. Like, for instance, Rossi's first win was because of fuel mileage, and basically it's a game of maths.
I totally agree. But I'm a big believer that racing is unpredictable, and we should never push for the same type of good race, if that makes sense. So a lot of people think that if there's lots of wheel-to-wheel action and lots of overtaking, that's what makes a good race. But that's what happens in Formula E, and I wouldn't exactly call Formula E very good racing, in my personal opinion. I like the fact you get...
it's very good crashing.
I like the
get to
fact
that.
you get a variety of different types of Indy 500. I like the fact that it's different every year. and I like the fact that yeah, we've had fuel mileage races in the past, and they've been great, and I did really enjoy those as well. But this year we got a cracker in terms of a dash to the flag, and yeah, it was a real classic.
It was a
Yeah.
classic for all 200 laps, in fairness. Like, it was genuinely one of the best 500s I've ever seen. And I've been watching the 500 since 99.
Now, one thing that I noticed about it though is that all the way through people were really struggling in the pit lane. And I know we've had pit incidents at Indy before, but I counted 4 this year. We had Castaneves spinning Davison in the pits. We had Will Power missing his pit box slightly, and knocking one of his mechanics. You had Jordan King taking down one of his mechanics. And actually, I can give an update on that mechanic. They had a broken leg, much like with the Raikkonen incident last year. They had surgery on that leg, but they are recovering and in good spirits. So there's the update
good.
for them. And then, of course, after all that, you had Marcus Ericsson spinning his way down the pit lane and clobbering the wall. Yeah,
That would have been an easy mistake to make for a rookie.
easy mistake to make, but still quite embarrassing. Yeah,
Of course,
I know.
yeah. I know.
Just for some reason, everyone was getting distracted in the pit lane.
Also, I think it was interesting that this race actually had the big one.
The big
Down
one.
by the crash.
Oh yeah.
The big one. And Graham Rahal was not at all happy about that.
Yeah, well, I watched it later. I watched the replay of it. Yeah, it basically, the fault has to go to both drivers. I'm afraid Bourdais turned down, and where was Rahal to go?
I'm gonna say mostly Bourdais.
Essentially.
I'm going to say mostly
Yeah.
Bourdais because by the time they reached the corner, they'd only just touched wheels, wheel to wheel. And yeah, it was an ambitious move from Rahal, but because they made contact so close to the entrance of the corner, Bourdais absolutely knew he was still there and just turned straight in. So I'm going to say the majority of the blame there for me goes to Bourdais. Yeah, it was just a shame that so many other drivers got involved with it. I'm going to say, though, it was a cleaner race on average than last year, and that's good to see. Like, last year we had many more instances of drivers just losing it on their own and going for mega spins. Bourdais did it, Danica Patrick did it, Tony Kanaan. Quite a few drivers.
Castaneves as well.
Yep, Castaneves, Karam. Quite a few drivers had that last year. But this year we only really had the big one plus Carl Kaiser's incident, which also was very unfortunate. Yeah, all of the other incidents were in the pit lane, so well done to everyone for keeping it clean. It was great to see the opening and the closing laps so clean. That's always what I like to see. And yeah, it was a clean race, or a largely clean race despite the big one.
Anyway, so that was a fantastic drive from Simon Pagenaud. He wouldn't have been my pick to win the race. Actually, yeah, let's talk about how our picks did to do it. Our picks did in the race.
Well,
Need to see where.
okay, so my pre-quali prediction was Alexander Rossi. He qualified 9th, of course, and I was, oh my word, towards the end of the race when he was challenging, when he was leading and then also challenging Pagenaud, I really thought that I might actually have, picked right for once from a 33-car grid. And I so nearly did, and he lost out by like less than a second, and it was so close. But yeah, my pick did well, he came second.
My pick, which was Ed Carpenter, he was doing quite well. He finished 6th. Only 2 seconds behind everyone else. Only 2 seconds behind the leaders.
I forget who I picked. Also, some people of note that I did mention. Sato was 3rd.
Sato was your pick, by the way, so you did really well with
Yes,
Sato.
he was. Hinchcliffe started 32nd and finished 10th, which is a great result for him. To start from the back row of the grid and finish in the top 10, I believe. And I believe actually I did pick Rossi, and did I pick Pagano?
No, I don't think
It's like a
anyone picked
dark horse.
Pagano. Nobody picked Pagano because I bet against him because he qualified on pole.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought it was a fantastic pole position for Pagano. Although I've watched races at Indy in the past, and Pagano never really went that well. So this weekend came out of the blue. You know, it wasn't just his first win; it was his first top 5 finish at Indy. And yeah,
And also, it should be noted, it was the first victory for a French driver in the Indianapolis 500 since the 1920 race when Gaston Chevrolet won
yeah,
it.
99
Bear in mind that
years.
was 99 years ago.
Yes, and
Uh,
he scored the pole 100 years after Rene Thomas did it
Oh,
in
okay.
1919.
That is quite incredible. So I'll say congratulations to Simon Pagano, and also I'd say congratulations to Alexander Rossi and Takuma Sato for doing really well and putting up an amazing fight. Somewhat annoyingly, for I believe for Chris probably,
And the majority.
Santina Ferrucci finished 7th. So on to
Okay,
Formula-
he had a decent race, in fairness. I'm gonna give him that credit, that he had a decent race.
He did.
But he's very unpredictable.
We've had
like-
we've had a YouTube comment, by the way. George,
Oh.
I'm sitting a long way away from my monitor. Sorry. George Chewens, I hope I pronounced that right. Says
That's right.
the Indy 500 was a great race this year. Definitely a highlight for the Indy calendar. Thanks for your
it
comment,
was
George,
fantastic.
and I totally agree with that.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
and I think on that note, it's time to move on to Formula One.
Ah,
Yes.
indeed. So, Formula
Do
One.
we have an F1 slide?
Yeah.
an F1
Sorry,
slide.
I'll do that very quickly. This is the lovely Formula One slide, made by Finnick Arrow, as always. So Formula One.
I should mention that Finnick Arrow actually has a Redbubble page where he makes T-shirts.
Ooh.
I'm thinking about buying. I think I might actually buy one. Maybe we can get a sponsorship deal. And we could get free ones.
Exclamation mark T-shirts in chat.
T-shirts, excellent.
So anyway, Formula One, of course,
that is
went
lovely.
to Monaco in the wake of Niki Lauda's passing, and we had a lot of wonderful Niki Lauda tributes as a result. We had Mercedes' Red Halo, which, with all due respect, looked a little bit. I don't know, it just looked a little bit scruffy, but I like the thought behind it.
I think it was actually good. I like the Halo.
Okay.
I think that was.
I didn't
good
like the
thing.
look of it, but I liked the thought. So well done to Mercedes.
And there was also some really awesome. There was some really awesome. Other really awesome Niki Lauda tributes in some of the other cars as well. So some of the cars, they were sporting the sort of decal that he used to run on his cars. So there were some really, really touching Niki Lauda tributes, and I think that was great.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel both ran Niki Lauda themed helmets. Also, Red Bull, I believe, had Danke Niki written on the side pods. Yeah, it was all great to see, and of course the drivers all crowded around Lauda's helmet before the start of the race, and they had a minute's silence. When the lights.
That was a scene that actually. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that was a scene that was reminiscent of the 1994 Monaco Grand Prix when they did the flags with Adieu Ayrton and Adieu Roland on the grid.
Indeed, yeah. So Formula One, of course, pole position was taken by Lewis Hamilton. It was a pretty decent pole lap actually. I think probably it was the fastest in history, so an ultimate track record, even though it doesn't count as a lap record. But whatever the case, when the lights went out in Monaco, Lewis Hamilton led away for the start of the Monaco Grand Prix. On lap 15, Antonio Giovinazzi's Alfa Romeo punted Robert Kubica's Williams in the Rascasse, which was the first Monaco incident of the weekend. Both were able to continue. Charles Leclerc's weekend went from bad to worse as he suffered a puncture on lap 17, which damaged the floor just enough to retire the Ferrari. I really think he should have returned to the pit slower than that, especially with his tyre flailing around like that. But anyway, John Hindhaugh has a saying which is that however slowly you think you're going, when you have a puncture, you're never going slowly enough. But anyway, this brought out the safety car, which wound up being the defining point of the race. Lewis Hamilton pitted, and Mercedes' team put on the medium compound tyres. Max Verstappen came out ahead of Valtteri Bottas, but squeezed Bottas in the pit lane, earning the Dutchman a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release. Hamilton held everybody up for the remaining laps, including an increasingly annoyed Verstappen, who tried to move on Hamilton with 3 laps left in the chicane, resulting in contact. In the end, despite Hamilton's constant complaints over the team radio and his scepticism on whether the mediums would last, he took the flag with Sebastian Vettel and Bottas rounding out the podium. The aforementioned time penalty meant that, despite Max Verstappen finishing second on the road, he would officially be classified in 4th position. The next race for Formula 1 is at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve at Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix.
Now, say what you will about Lewis Hamilton, but that was an absolutely spectacular drive.
You know what? Say what you will about Monaco, that was an absolutely spectacular race.
Yeah,
Say what you will about Mercedes, but that was an absolutely shameful display on the radio by Lewis Hamilton. Like, I'm sorry, you don't constantly whine on the team radio saying that your tires are going off, like, for lap after lap, and then hold everybody up going at the pace of the Williams.
That actually sounds pretty reasonable to me. That's
how you win at Monaco. You just park the car in the middle of the road.
On a track you can't overtake on.
That's how I won my first league race. I just parked my Ferrari in the middle of the road and made it the widest Ferrari F355 in the entire world.
To be honest, I don't really get what the problem is. Yeah, Hamilton was a bit whiny, but you know, when you're leading a race at Monaco and your tires start going off like that, and you're under pressure from you know, the guy behind you. Yeah, of course it's going to be that tension is running high, and of course you're going to start getting worried and frustrated. And to be honest, I don't think that he was like deliberately making a bigger fuss out of it than he actually should have done, like people say. I genuinely believe that his tyres were going off quite badly, and also he did really have to fight for it. It was a good win, and yeah, I can't say I agree with you on that one, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, George Chewins says in the comments, let's talk about how Mercedes is running away with the championship this year. Formula One is becoming more bland because of the imbalance between all of the teams. Now, I don't think Monaco was actually won by the Mercedes team. Well, it wasn't down to the Mercedes team that led to Hamilton winning. I think that was actually a spectacular drive from Hamilton. But yes, undeniably, Mercedes are running away with the championship, and I think we have actually already established that fact. If the championship is going to go to anyone this year, it's going to go, I'm probably going to assume, between one of the 2 Mercedes cars, because even at this early stage, I don't see anyone actually realistically being able to catch up to them.
Yeah, Hamilton has already won the championship, in my opinion. I think he won it as soon as he won in probably China. But you know, that doesn't take away from the racing that we're seeing on track. And yeah, we haven't had much at other races. I think Monaco has, and I certainly didn't expect to say this after round 6, but I think Monaco has been the best race we've had so far this year. And
Gosh.
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I do have to agree with you.
I don't, I
I
don't. Sorry, I don't think that I don't think the championship standings really take away from that at all. I think that now is probably a bad time to be talking about the championship because we had, we had a tense race at Monaco, and that's what it was. Like, I know people always want flat out, wheel to wheel excitement and stuff, but what we saw in Monaco was a rare type of race, which is a race of tension. The tension that there
Which
was.
is what we saw kind of last year in the last few laps when Sebastian Vettel was all over the back of Daniel Ricciardo.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree. Although I think to a lesser extent last year, but this year, this year it was far more tense, and I enjoyed the strategy behind it as well. And yeah, to be honest, I've really got no complaints about this Monaco Grand Prix. That was actually a much better race than I was expecting that we were going to get, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
As a point
One
of
thing-
interest, should we look at the point standings?
Well, actually, before we do that, I was actually going to get into something. The incident between Lewis and Verstappen.
Oh yes,
Now,
in
I've
fact,
looked at the footage. From the incident countless times, and at first, I thought that that Lewis had turned down, knowing Verstappen was there. But I agree with Caitlin on this that was a bit naughty by Max.
Yes.
It was because how you're not that you can't make a move that far back and expect to get anything done.
yeah, I totally agree. That's just Max Verstappen thinking that everyone has to dive out the way of him because he's coming through, and they're gonna have an accident if they don't get out of the way of him, and just how Senna did it and all of that. And I really don't like it when people have that attitude because it's not how you race, especially in that situation in that kind of car. And yeah, I don't know why he ever thought he was owed that piece of tarmac. Hamilton did not have to give him room there, and rightfully didn't. And it's just a good job that they didn't.
What
They came together, but they didn't.
Although I will say, what Hamilton should have done was also slowed down and given back the time that he gained by cutting the chicane.
I disagree.
Really, what difference?
I don't think he did that.
What difference would it have made? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
True.
So Chris,
Because Max was gonna be penalized anyway. He wasn't going to win the race unless he got out in front of Lewis Hamilton a little earlier than that.
Chris, I've spoken. I remember speaking to you about this at the time, but I'm going to say my thoughts on it again. As for Hamilton, cutting the chicane, he was absolutely not what's the word? Not obligated.
He was shoved off.
No, okay, so the word I'm looking for means he was I don't know. Okay, so he was within his rights to do that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
There is a word for that. I just can't. I don't know. Sorry. But yeah, he was within his rights to do that because he was very much shoved off the road. And you were also saying at the time that, yeah, he passed a back marker by doing so. No, he didn't really. They were already out of the chicane by the time the back marker slowed, and the back marker did slow for him, and that was going to happen anyway. I think everything was fine on that front, and they finished in the right order.
So, is the word you're looking for entitled?
There you go, flippin' heck, entitled. Sorry, thanks, Jack.
As a point of interest, well, not really. We'll look at the point standings, and it isn't. Well, it's not that exciting or really particularly hopeful at all. Lewis Hamilton leads the championship on 137 points, followed by Valtteri Bottas on 120, and Sebastian Vettel is in third with 82 points.
Which
in
I believe
third.
this is his best finish of the season, is it not?
It is.
Vettel's?
It is, and in fact, it is the first non-Mercedes 1-2 of the year, so that's a good sign.
Yay.
Yeah.
Also, let's give some credit to Honda.
Oh, I heard a good stat about this at the time actually. Of course, we had 4 Hondas in the top 10, with Verstappen 4th, Gasly 5th, Kvyat 7th, and Albon 8th. That is the first time that we've had 4 Hondas in the top 10 since the British Grand Prix 1987.
Well, that just proves the point. So I remember everyone a few years ago was saying, "Oh, McLaren are only bad because of the Honda engine. They have a fantastic chassis." But Red Bull, they seem to, and Toro Rosso, they seem to be really coming into their own. I'm not sure if that was because they were developing the engine or if it was just McLaren's fault that the Hondas were rubbish. But congratulations to Honda. They've had a fantastic season they've had a pretty good season so far with Red Bull. And I'd say that's a good sign. Looks like Honda is returning to, well, at least where they were in the 2000s.
Yeah, and like people often like get the fault for McLaren wrong. It was actually McLaren designed the chassis around the engine, but didn't take or am I getting that backwards?
Yeah, so
It doesn't
basically,
look like they designed the engine around the chassis. They designed the engine and they designed the chassis and expected the engine to work with it.
what you're trying to
Or
say,
fit.
what you're trying to say is they asked too much from the engine.
Yeah.
From Honda, and they didn't work with Honda. There was a lack of communication, and of course, you know, I wasn't in the team, so I don't know specifically. But yeah, there definitely seemed to be a real lack of communication, lack of trust, just lack of everything between McLaren and Honda.
Sounds like McLaren's IndyCar program.
It very much
But we'll
does.
get to that.
And to be honest, I am starting to have really weird feelings about McLaren. I don't think that they have. I don't think their heart's in the right place. I don't think. I just. I don't think that they're really in it anymore. Much like Ferrari.
Oh, they certainly are not. Anyway, so that was a pretty interesting Monaco Grand Prix, certainly better than it has been in the last few years, and let's hope for a more exciting Canadian Grand Prix than we had last year.
Well, I will say Canada does produce a good race. I'm a little biased because am one, but
That's not this weekend, is it? No, it's next weekend.
it is this weekend.
It
Well,
is.
no, I mean not this weekend because we're currently in it, but the 8th.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, so you will be doing an. Oh, that will be on the. Oh, that will be really exciting. You'll be able to. We'll be able to cover a Canadian Grand Prix with a Canadian on the show for the 1-year anniversary of Motorsport recently, and I think that is unbelievably exciting.
Jolly good.
Excellent.
It's going to be amazing. The 1-year anniversary of Motorsport recently coming up. Well, it will be on, I believe, June. Actually, I had this open before.
I posted my Canadian Grand Prix predictions to Twitter the other day. I actually have Bottas P1. I feel like he's going to come back strong after his disappointment at Monaco. I've got Hamilton P2, followed by Vettel and Verstappen, Leclerc, Magnussen, Norris, Sainz, Gasly, and Raikkonen the top 10. So yeah, those are my top 10 for the Canadian Grand Prix. I did, in fact, at Monaco, I managed to get one person's position right. I had Gasly in P5 correct. Although I do only have Gasly in P9 for Canada, because I don't think Canada is a track that's going to suit the Honda engine, especially with that long straight. So we'll see. But anyway.
So,
I think it's basically Mercedes race to lose. As
Certainly.
far as like that long straight, but then again, hopefully Ferrari gets all the right nuts and all the right bolts this time.
Anyway,
Alright,
Jack, you're
just
going to say something.
yes, just an update on what I was saying before. The 1-year anniversary of Motorsport recently comes on June the 12th, but we will probably be doing the episode for that on June 14th, if I'm correct. So that will be fairly exciting, I'm sure. So that was a good Monaco Grand Prix well, I'd say yes, it was definitely a very good Monaco Grand Prix, and I think it's time to head back over to the other side of the pond for some NASCAR.
Yes, it was stock car racing's longest night. The Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. William Byron and Eric Almirola started on the front row to begin the longest race of the NASCAR calendar. On lap 17, Kyle Larson, who won the previous weekend's All-Star race, found the wall coming off of turn 2. The first of 16 yellows came out on lap 23 when Eric Jones blew a right front tire and slammed the turn 4 wall. A similar incident befell Matt DiBenedetto in turn 2 on lap 48 and Martin Truex Jr. on lap 75. Shortly after that restart, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. spun after being punted by Kyle Busch in turn 4 on lap 87. Turn 4 was a problem for the drivers during the daytime portion of the event, with Clint Bowyer and Daniel Hemrick colliding coming off of the 4th turn, causing the 5th yellow flag of the day. Brad Keselowski handily won the first stage. As darkness began to fall, the action continued to heat up. On lap 125, Chris Buescher stopped in turn 4 after a right front tire issue. The same issue befell Denny Hamlin on lap 161 and Ryan Preece on lap 190. Keselowski won stage 2, to which the cars were brought down to pit road and silenced in honor of the troops who lost their lives defending the United States. As cars were pitting on lap 250, Martin Truex Jr. got into the back of rookie Bailey Curry, turning Curry's SR-71 Blackbird tribute painted Ford into the backstretch wall hard. Truex would go on to win Stage 3 comfortably. On lap 310 of this marathon, Kurt Busch got loose under Ryan Blaney and spun in front of his brother Kyle, damaging the 18's right side quarter panel. After they restarted from that incident, Kyle Larson spun in front of the pack in turn 2 and collected Austin and Ty Dillon, Clint Bowyer, and Ryan Preece. Denny Hamlin's nightmare day got worse on lap 362 when he blew another right front and hit the turn 2 wall. Brad Keselowski broke a track bar and spun into the pit lane with 8 laps to go. The final move was made with 2 laps left when Martin Truex made it 4 wide on the final restart to take the lead, which he would hold for the remaining laps. Mercifully, Denny Hamlin hit the backstretch wall on the final lap, but the victory belonged to MTJ, as they call him, as Martin Truex Jr. won his second Coca-Cola 600 in 3 years, holding off Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. The next race for the Cup Series is at the Tricky Triangle at Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania.
And breathe. Well, I would say that was yet another very good race at Charlotte.
A lot of tire issues. I don't know what the problem is with Goodyear. Like it always seems to be at Charlotte that they always seem to have tire issues. Specifically right fronts going down. And like of the six, and yes, by the way, that is not a that wasn't a misprint, by the way. I did actually see 16 yellows. And some of them were actually spaced within 20 laps.
That's just a lot of yellows. Is that too many?
It's not the most. The most was actually the 2005 Coke 600, which had, and I cannot believe, and you won't believe me when you guys won't believe me when I say this. 22 cautions
Wow.
in 2005 in the Coke 600. They had
How many-
22 cautions.
Just the race again?
The race is 400 laps or 600 miles.
Oh wow.
Basically, 600 miles on a 1.5 mile oval. That's 400 laps.
Yes. So yes, another very. It's like they carried the exciting racing and sort of momentum, so to speak, from the All-Star and Open races to the Coke 600.
Yeah, like I'm genuinely believing that the new aero package, that the new rules package is actually resulting in better racing this season. I've noticed that, like,
Which is what they've been trying to do for ages.
yeah, like they've been, like, yeah. Words.
Better racing.
Yeah, they've been basically struggling for the past couple of seasons with very little overtaking. Like last year, for instance, they actually had like Kyle Busch led 393 of the 400 laps.
309. Wow. Okay. That does sound like a bit of a domination, and it was a lot more exciting this year.
It certainly was. Actually, let me see if my facts are right here. Let's see if my facts are right.
What kind of facts? X.
I'm trying to see if my facts are correct with how many laps Kyle Busch actually led. And he led...
A lot of laps.
We come back
300,
to
377.
okay, that's still quite a lot. So, overall thoughts, it was better this year, and are there any other thoughts on this race?
That's all I really have to say on the subject.
Well, we're moving on to the hash brown circuit, which should be interesting.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jack. Now I want hash browns.
See, I actually thought that I saw it on, I think it was I Want to Believe NASCAR's YouTube, not YouTube page, Instagram account, and that post was suggesting that Pocono actually looks like a hash brown. I took a picture of a hash brown that I thought looked like Pocono. I was going to post that a year ago, but even though I had a year's head start, I Want to Believe still beat me to it. And on that disappointment, I think it's time to move on to Formula E.
But did you eat the hash brown?
Yes, I did eat the hash brown. I ate several hash browns whilst I was and on the particular in this particular thing. I ate the hash brown in New Zealand, and I had multiple hash browns whilst I was in New Zealand in Queenstown.
Oh, great, Jack. Thanks a lot. Now I want hash browns.
Jolly good.
What about you, Caitlin?
Hash browns are mushrooms, right?
No, hash browns are
No,
these beautiful
no.
potato things. They're like they're shredded potato that's put into like a hydraulic press, and then basically we call them tater tots
Okay.
as well.
In which
You get them on the
case-
breakfast menu at McDonald's.
How
Not
can
just
I?
at McDonald's though.
How can I be British and not know what a hash brown is?
Anyway, we should probably stop.
Oh, jolly good.
I've
probably-
just gone my whole life believing that hash browns are mushrooms.
Oh goodness.
I have no idea.
The things you learn on Motorsport recently, folks.
Yeah.
Somebody suggested to me that we make 8 to 9 minute highlight packs of each show, and that is definitely going in it, even though
Oh,
it's got
certainly.
nothing to do with motorsport. Should we move on to Formula E because we've got a bit off topic?
Okay. Well, I kind of embarrassed myself with that, so I've got to redeem myself with Formula E. Yeah. Thanks for the article, by the way, Smoking Puppy. Yeah. Funny story about that. I wrote my article earlier and then found out that we already had an article, but that's fine. But anyway,
paranoid, and I managed this very, very poorly, which they do apologise for.
it's okay. Don't worry about it, Jack. Anyway, Formula E's most used circuit, the Tempelhof Airport, was host around round what?
10 of 13.
Oh,
And
10
30.
of 13. I thought it was like I thought we didn't know whether it was
It was a
round
triple
10 or
header.
13.
It was a
That-
triple header
that
in
would
Berlin.
that would be a quadruple header, but anyway. Of season 5 of the Berlin Eprix. As Group 1 qualifying was the first run of the day on track, a 2-day format being used for the first time in Formula E history. The difference between groups was larger than usual, and only Lucas di Grassi was able to progress to Superpole. He ended up qualifying third, with Sebastian Buemi taking pole position and Stoffel van Dorn lining up second. Championship leader Jean-Eric Vergne qualified ninth, but would start 8th due to a grid penalty. A grid penalty for Alexander Sims. Another driver who was affected in qualifying was Andre Lotterer, of course, who came into this round second in the championship and only started 21st due to actually missing qualifying altogether. Little overtaking took place towards the front at the start of the race, but di Grassi was able to pass Van Dorn at turn 6 on lap 3, and then he dispatched Buemi to take the lead 3 laps later. Di Grassi was never troubled again, pulling out a gap and taking his second win of the season to move him up to second in the points. Behind him, though, the battle for second was an intense one, with Buemi holding position until he took his first attack mode on lap 19 out of 37. Antonio Felix da Costa of BMW Andretti had risen from 7th on the grid, helped by an effective use of attack mode, to get past as Buemi took the extra loop. Attack mode proved of no use to enable Buemi to get past, but Fan Boost, for the first time this season, provided a critical overtake. On lap 24, Buemi was able to use it to get alongside into turn 1 and get past into turn 2, albeit not without a bit of contact. It was a brave move, but he made it stick. Vergne had managed to climb his way forward throughout the race. Turn 6, his favourite overtaking spot, and he was able to find his way past da Costa to take the final podium position and extend his points lead to 6 points, but over di Grassi instead of his teammate Andre Lotterer. Da Costa came home 4th ahead of Van Dorn and Daniel Abt, and Lotterer experienced a horrible weekend after failing to set a full power lap in qualifying, and after climbing from 21st to 11th in the race, he retired due to a hot battery. Robin Freins, the other main title contender with 3 rounds, Bern and a New York City doubleheader remaining, qualified 21st, started 22nd after a penalty carried over from Monaco, and could only recover to a pointless 13th, dropping to 5th in the championship. So that was Formula E.
Yeah, so by the sounds of it, Andre Lotterer's there was Samsung Note 7.
Yes.
Hot batteries.
Wait, was that
not
the
allowed
one?
on aeroplanes.
Was that the one that exploded?
Yes, it was. And it wasn't allowed on aeroplanes, so if you were boarding an aeroplane, you had to put it in a little bin.
Aww.
Because it would explode.
Right.
I remember those.
Now, a lot of people have been saying about this race just how good attack mode is and how exciting it made the racing. I think it did. I think that it did make the racing more exciting, but I also think it's dangerous. And I've always said this. It's very much like putting an extra pit lane on the track, but with less predictability. And the trouble is, pit lanes are always the most dangerous points on the circuit, of course, because on the entrance you often have to to check up, especially in awkward pit lane entrances such as the one at Monaco, which has seen causing issues in the past. And on the pit lane exit, of course, as well, you have to rejoin safely, and you have to rejoin safely and make sure you know where you're coming out. Attack mode's different because you are still going at full racing speed and you're still racing hard for position, and you're not obliged to slot in safely, or I mean, you are obliged to slot in safely, but you're not obliged to slot into position like you are when you're coming out of the pit lane. As a result, we often get very tricky situations with attack mode. I've seen at previous tracks, cars checking up and getting punted from behind because the guys behind simply weren't expecting them to pull into the pits when they did. And at Berlin, we had the opposite problem, which was the exit, because although the entrance was fine, you had a very wide corner leading in, so the entrance was no problem. On the exit, the cars exiting the corner normally were going so much slower than the cars exiting from the attack mode that sometimes you had the cars coming out of the attack mode activation zone having to suddenly take avoiding action. I saw that from Vern near the start of the race on, I think, Lynn. But yeah, suddenly had to take avoiding action as he rejoined the track. And there was another point where Felipe Massa had to take avoiding action as well. Yeah, it just seemed a little bit like, yeah, it made the racing more exciting, but I was worried it was going to cause an accident.
I mean, I actually think the good racing is down to, and we'll be making this point all year, I'd say that the Berlin Eprix circuit is actually most like a racetrack than any of the other circuits, and the racing was actually quite exciting.
I agree. And by the way, on attack mode, I think I know how to fix Formula E.
Oh.
Okay.
Green, red, and blue shells.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you're
Mario Kart.
if you're running far back, basically just throw a blue spiny shell and take the leader out.
Yes.
Job done.
We have some people in the chat, by the way. We have Isabel Linden joining the chat, and we also have Freya Edwards joining the chat.
Hi, Freya.
Hey there,
Hasn't
guys.
been on anything in the past couple of weeks. That's because she's been out in the forest doing camping.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed
You've
that,
been
Freya.
camping? I'm so sorry.
Oh, come on, I love camping.
I don't like camping. My
Okay.
idea of camping is anywhere there's a hot tub.
That's not really camping.
I stayed in the campsite at Silverstone when I went to the Grand Prix, although I don't really consider that camping, it was just kind of staying in a tent. But yeah, camping in the Isles of Scilly every year is wonderful. Oh, but anyway, yeah, hey there Freya, and hey there Isabel, and yeah, great to see you both joining us.
Anyway, have we gone to the point standings?
Okay,
for
so
Formula
in
E?
terms of the Formula E point standings, let me just get those up quickly. I did have them, but that was on the other version that we didn't end up using. Okay, Formula E, and there we go. So after this round, of course, it was Jean-Eric Vergne who maintained his championship lead with his podium position, his third place, followed by Lucas de Grassi, who moves up to second after his race victory. Andre Lotterer has dropped to third after his retirement. Antonio Felix da Costa stays fourth. Robin Freins has dropped to fifth after a pointless weekend. Mitch Evans was also pointless. He's currently sixth. Daniel Abt is seventh. Jerome D'Ambrosio is eighth, followed by Oliver Rowland and Sebastian Buemi, who of course finished sixth at Berlin. Incidentally, Buemi's first podium of the series, and I certainly didn't think he'd get this far before scoring his first. So we have 3 rounds left in the championship, and those, of course, are 1 at Bern and 2 at New York. And of course, being Formula E, it's still very much anyone's game up the front.
Hooray! So I'd say that was a solid race.
Yeah, I don't know. I just Formula E always fails to excite me, and I just think it's because it's, you know, it's gimmicky, and it's not as slow as it used to be, so that's not really an issue compared to how it used to be. But still, I don't like the fact that I don't like the circus they race on. Tempelhof probably one of the best, but apart from that, yeah, I don't know. Formula E is not my cup of
Actually,
tea.
Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is actually pretty good as well.
Yeah, no, that's actually also kind of a racetrack as well. So again,
It's an oval, but
this
they
is
just put chicanes in.
no, this is the point where we have been trying to make all year. Formula E should race on proper racetracks because the street circuits are rubbish, and the ones that are most like actual racetracks have fantastic racing.
I agree.
And don't forget the blue shells.
And the
Yes,
blue
blue
shells.
Don't forget blue, red, and green shells. Or if you're defending bananas.
To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if in the future, if Formula E continues on its current path, they do try to implicate something which is not just not just giving yourself a power up, but also affecting your opponents. Like maybe at some point in the race you can pick an opponent to decrease power for, or something like that. I don't know how they do it, but
That
yeah,
would be too gimmicky, I think.
it would be. But I thought the same thing about. To be honest, I thought the same thing about fan boost and attack mode. But I don't know. It would be interesting to see how they'd make that work.
And instead of hearing the sound of the cars, I just thought of another thing.
Okay.
Music from classic Mario games.
Yes.
From classic Mario Kart games.
Actually, that would really fit. And I've seen edits where they've like edited Mario Kart music over the top of it. Actually, it really
Like the
really works.
N64 version of the Mario and Luigi circuit music would go great at Mexico.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
Just like
I think we're going hopelessly off track again, so I think we should move on to our next segment, which is, and we don't have a jingle for this yet, Regional Racing Roundup.
yeehaw!
On this episode of
Now, this
Motorsport
isn't so much,
recently, we look back at the
regional,
Monaco
but
Grand Prix, the
Formula
Indy
Two,
500, the
so
Coke
it's
600, and the
like
Berlin Eprix. This is Triple Crown Racing. Let's get into it.
It happened. No, I think. Sorry. No, I don't think it was Calderon. But anyway, whatever the case, two cars came together at the Rascas section. They ended up blocking the circuit, very much like the. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. Sorry, I didn't know the intro was playing. My apologies. It's okay now. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Really sorry about that. But anyway, so just to recap that, two cars came together and blocked the track at the Rascas. The red flag was called for, and there was a big issue with that because the incident happened between the cars racing for 9th and 10th positions. That meant that everyone ahead of them ended up doing a lap more than everyone behind them. When the red flag came out, that should have reset itself. It should have taken itself from the start of the previous lap, not the start of that lap. But they didn't. They completely either forgot that rule or ignored that rule or something. And when the race restarted, everyone from 1st to 8th position was classified as a lap ahead of everyone else. and it stuck. They didn't. They admitted after the race that it had been a glitch, that it had been an issue, but there was no alteration to the race results. And I think it's been a while since I've heard a mess up like that. But yeah, they completely ignored the rule that the standings are taken from the start of the previous lap, not the start of that lap. Whatever the case, there was also another incident when Mahavir Raghunathan shoved Jack Aitken into the barrier, which is a bit of a shame because Aitken, of course, could have had a much better round than that. Nicholas Latifi had a pretty torrid race. He ended up 12th. And didn't have a much better race in race 2 either. Race 2 was a much closer race. In fact, it was pretty much a photo finish between Antoine Hubert and Louis Delatraz, with Hubert coming out on top out of the two of them by less than half a second in all of that, as Delatraz ran him right to the line. Third place was Guan Yu, but again, quite a lot happened behind them. Tatiana Calderon had a crash, as well as Mahavir Raghunathan, who got shoved into the wall by Luca Giotto at the hairpin. Nicholas Latifi had a torrid race. He finished in 10th position. But I think one of the most interesting fights of the race was between Sean Galal and Giuliano Alesi. They made contact, and then made contact again for the second time in the same lap as Galal ran into the back of Alesi at the chicane. But whatever the case, Alesi was out. Galal continued to a 15th place finish. And after Monaco, Latifi leads the championship by just 1 point over Nick de Vries. They're followed by Luca Giotto, Jack Aitken, Guan Yu, Sergio Sette Camara, Antoine Hubert, Louis Delatraz, Dorian Boccolacci, and Nobuharu Matsushita. And that is the order, the top 10 order, after the first 4 rounds.
Very interesting.
And Mahavir Raghunathan, the greatest Formula 2 driver, is where in the standings?
He is 20th out of 21, so still ahead of Tatiana Calderon, but yeah.
Go Tatiana!
Oh, goodness sake. Oh, dear. What's happened in Porsche Super Cup?
And Porsche Super Cup was also took place on the same weekend. I can't give a race rundown because I didn't see the race, but in terms of the results, former Toro Rosso test driver Michael Ammermuller has won and thus taken the lead of the championship by doing so. He was followed across the line by Mikolo Pedersen from Norway and Larry Ten Voorde, who was actually didn't start the race at Catalunya. His car was taken in that round by, I believe, Janis Fitcher. And instead, Voorde stood in for Monaco and finished in 3rd place. And they were followed, making out the top 10 by Florian Latorre. I'm actually sitting far too far away from my monitor. 5th place was Ahan Kan Guven. I hope I said that more or less right. He's currently 2nd in the championship. And then it was Jaap van Lagen, Julian Andlauer, Theo Elenas, Jackson Evans, sorry. That's an interesting spelling of Jackson. Jaxon. Very interesting. And 10th place went the way of Al-Faisal Al-Zubair.
Chris, what has happened at Lime Rock?
Lime Rock Park held the annual Memorial Day race for the Trans Am Series, and it was won by Chris Dyson, who if you are a fan of sports car racing of the 90s or 80s, you'd recognize the name Dyson. They were the ones
cleaner?
that... The which?
The vacuum cleaner.
No, not the vacuum cleaner. You may remember his father, Rob Dyson. And...
I don't actually. He's Rob Dyson. Sorry.
That's okay. It's tough when I'm old. basically the Dyson family,
Like vacuum cleaners.
they did not make vacuum cleaners. um, no vacuum cleaners. Or hand dryers, or any kind of things that suck and or blow.
I wouldn't say that on air, by the way.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, what are you implying, Chris?
Oh no.
Sorry.
And we're off the air.
Everywhere.
YouTube
We're not
hates me.
hearing.
We've been banned.
Anyway, go ahead,
Anyway,
Chris.
Chris Dyson also raced in the American Le Mans series, and his father actually owned the race team that won the first ever American Le Mans series championship in 1999. Well, anyway, Chris Dyson actually won the race won the Trans Am race at Lime Rock.
That's a pretty decent feat for a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, God. Motorsport recently presented by the Dyson V11. Will clean your floor very nicely.
This fucking doesn't lose suction.
Sorry,
But,
Chris.
Gone off track again. How does this keep happening? At times they've turned into a motoring show. Now it's talking about vacuum cleaners.
Motorsport recently.
Have we actually talked about what's happened at Lime Rock yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, Dyson won it, and he actually said that this was the most important victory of his career because it came at home. It came in his home race because he and Dyson Racing are situated in Connecticut. And I swear to God, if you say one more thing about vacuum cleaners,
Hey, Chris. Where did Henry finish?
Hoover. The which?
Where did Henry finish?
Just behind Hoover.
Just behind Hoover. Got it. Okay.
Alright, should we move on to our final segment?
But yeah,
of the day?
congratulations to Chris Dyson on the win at Lime Rock Park in the Trans Am race.
Move on to our final segment of the day.
Would that segment be the segment that I have got the jingle ready for?
Yes, it is.
Jolly good. It is time for... miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore recovering 90M. Indeed it is.
Hooray! And I think that's the best playing of that jingle we've ever had.
Oh, we had a pretty good one a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, this one, yeah, all down to me. Sorry, go ahead.
In our increasingly environmental world, how has IMSA been able to join the Kale Eaters and Prius drivers of the world? Chris, would you like to tell us about that?
First of all, kale eaters hate him, because I eat meat. I eat meat. But IMSA actually announced at the Belle Isle weekend, this weekend, that they have relaunched the new green initiative known as IMSA Green. Now, of course, for those people that remember the American Le Mans series, they had a program in the late 2000s until the merger known as the Michelin Green X Challenge, which was basically for alternate fuels and basically green technology. Such a system is going to be implemented once again. And with talk of DPI 2.0 going to hybrid, I'm actually really looking forward to this. Plus, I was a big fan of the Green X Challenge.
Green X and
before,
ham?
like when it was.
Sorry.
What's happening now? We're going off topic again.
You said you said Green X, and I was like, I've heard that somewhere before. Sorry.
Yeah,
I do not like Green X and ham, Sam I am.
I will not eat them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. Um,
Sorry.
My face is in my hand.
Okay, back
Yeah,
to back to green.
the head is in the desk.
Alright, what Sims done?
Yes, what have they done? Chris, sorry.
Essentially, they have relaunched the old, they've announced expanded initiatives for its green racing programs. IMSA President Scott Atherton, this is from a tweet from Michelin. IMSA President Scott Atherton notes how IMSA and Michelin will work together to reduce the overall environmental carbon footprint in a rapidly changing mobility landscape. I'm actually glad that they're doing this. I genuinely am. Like, because if
prefer not to die of global warming.
if the scientists are to be believed, which I do believe science.
We're already too late.
No, we're not already too late. We've got I think 20 or 12 years left.
20 or 12? That's like, I mean, that's still...
Between 12 and 20 years left.
Okay, yes.
Yes. No hidden contextual stuff there.
2012. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. But yeah, I'm genuinely glad that they're relaunching the Green X Challenge, which was basically among the former winners of the challenge was Corvette, which ran which ran with E85 ethanol in their cars. Audi ran with biodiesel. And also Dyson Racing ran with
No one say a thing. No one at all.
You just did, Jack. You just did.
Nice.
With their Mazda LMP1s, where they ran they ran a special blend of fuel which was environmentally friendly.
They could have at least gone to an electric Hoover. Like, what the heck?
No.
I think the joke's passed already, guys.
Yeah,
Should we move on? Should we move on to the WEC?
Yes,
okay.
and this is a fairly exciting change of drivers here. Thomas Laurent has been named the reserve and test driver for Toyota Gazoo Racing in their LMP1 program. I have to say, I'm really looking forward to this, just seeing how he does it in the Toyota.
That's good news, I'd say. That's good. And then yes,
he's a pretty quick driver.
I'm driver though.
A which?
He's not a full-time driver.
No, his last race is with Rebellion. His last race with Rebellion will be at Le Mans.
Right.
But yeah, words. But yeah, Thomas Laurent will be has signed on to become the reserve driver for Toyota in LMP1.
Of course, this is 24 Hours of Le Mans class winner Thomas Laurent we're talking about here. So yeah, definitely the kind of driver you want on your prototype team.
Nearly won Le Mans overall in LMP2. Nearly won Le Mans in that P2 car.
2017,
Jackie
yeah.
Chan.
Anyway, something's going on with Dragon Speed. What's that all about?
Yes, this actually broke yesterday. Dragon Speed's WEC LMP2 lineup has now switched teams for 2019-2020, as they will be going to the Jodas Sport team in WC.
Who were they with before?
They're with Dragon Speed, of course. They are Pastor Maldonado,
Oh, of
Ricardo
course.
Gonzalez, and Anthony Davidson.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's a nice
Right.
lineup.
Okay. Not flying up.
I do like that lineup. Yeah.
Anyway.
Two of those being the winners at Daytona, and they have won this year. They won this year at was it Spa that they won?
Oh, potentially. Let me search that up. So we're looking
Anyway,
for.
why you?
Yes.
well, I
Sorry.
guess-
Yes, it was Spa that they won. Yeah, it was.
All right, that's some interesting news. And the next couple of stories is that our favorite thing in the world has happened. We have some interesting liveries, and that is, and one of them was Porsche's livery, which they have unveiled a gold and black champions livery. I think it's the European team, the European GT team, celebrating their
WEC
championship
teams.
win. And then the IMSA cars are running the Brumo scheme, which is absolutely fantastic, and we love retro liveries. And also, Ford have some absolutely spectacular liveries.
All 5 of them, in fact, because you got to count the Wins car in there as well.
Hmm.
The you know which ones the Wins car, right? You guys know the Wins car, right? The Ben Keating.
Yeah, of course,
One.
yeah, of course.
Basically, I like the range that they're doing for these. Basically, it's their highlighting their victories at Le Mans. Now, I'm not sure whether or not they were allowed to run the Gulf livery for the which one has the blue and orange
69
colors?
car, the 69 car.
The 69. Yeah, the
I've just had a thought.
yes.
If every team went to retro liveries to commemorate their victories at Le Mans, that would mean that in a couple of years, we'd have run out of retro liveries, as in, the commemorative liveries of the winning cars would be commemorative liveries, so we'd be commemorating commemorative liveries. Does that make any sense at all?
Yes.
Good. I think.
Put some thinking emojis in chat, everyone.
Yes. Shall we? Anyway, so yes, some very, very interesting liveries for, excuse me, Le Mans. And there's been some interesting news with McLaren. Who'd like to tell us about that?
I'll do it. They are apparently unlikely to enter full-time in IndyCar in 2020.
And
Which is a mistake.
Yeah, it's a
and why
mistake.
is that?
I'll tell you why. What did they think was going to happen? What do you think is going to happen if they show up, do just Indianapolis with a it'll be exactly the same as last year. It was a big mistake to only do the one race at Indianapolis, and then, well, basically they need to figure out how not to be an embarrassment.
Yes, they do.
Like I'm gonna say this flat out. McLaren, that was embarrassing.
Yes, it
Last
was.
year. That was a complete abomination.
It was.
You don't show up unprepared.
But you are of course referring to, by last year. You mean this year?
Yes.
That just to clarify that. So yeah, that.
Oh, yeah,
that
no.
That is a mistake. I have to agree with you. However, we actually do have a first for this show. And that is, in miscellaneous stories and points that we missed, therefore covering now, we are finally able to use the points side of that particular title, because earlier in the show, George, just as we were moving on to NASCAR, George Chewins actually asked if Ferrari are screwing over Leclerc because of their favoritism towards Sebastian Vettel. Now, what do we think of that?
Okay, so I'm gonna start. I don't think it has anything to do with their favoritism towards Sebastian Vettel. I think it's just Ferrari being Ferrari in general. Of course, the incident that George is referring to in this specific context is Charles Leclerc not being sent out again at the end of qualifying or Q1, sorry, and therefore missing out on a place in Q2. It was a misjudgment from Ferrari. They said it was a complete misjudgment, and to be honest, they've had far too many misjudgments in the last couple of series. For my liking, this series so far has been a joke. They've had the car to win races. They had the car to win at Bahrain. Everything went wrong, and yeah, no, they are screwing over Leclerc because they're screwing over the whole team, really, both Leclerc and Vettel. And to be honest, I don't think that Ferrari is a good team anymore. I think the only reason that they are still winning, or not winning because they're not winning, but the only reason they're still one of the top teams is because of their budget from previous seasons. I wouldn't be surprised if Ferrari are technically the worst team on the grid this year.
Well, that's not strictly true.
No,
Williams.
notice there how I said the worst team, not the worst car. Their car.
Oh no, because Williams had had like a 2-second pit stop at Monaco.
Yeah, 2 seconds is quick. Wait, what do you mean?
No, I'm saying that. Yeah, no, that's the I understand your point now, because Williams are technically a good team. They just have a rubbish car.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, Williams
that's
has
budget.
had Williams has had some of the fastest pit stops,
But
but they don't seem to progress anywhere during the race itself.
But it's not just pit stops I'm talking about. I'm talking about a combination of, the drivers, the mechanics, the actual personnel within the team, the designers, all of those people as a whole. I think that the only reason the Ferrari is so much faster than the Williams is because they had so much more budget, so they were able to do more. I think that Williams are a great team. They are just really struggling for budget because they're a privateer and they've had a few dodgy seasons. Whereas Ferrari is Ferrari. They are the richest team on the grid. They have a humongous budget, and as a result, they really should be winning every race, and they aren't even getting close to winning one as it stands. So, yeah,
Anyway,
pick your game
before
up, Ferrari.
Anyway,
And I'm also, like, just to put a period on it, unfortunately, when it comes to not just Leclerc, like, I'm getting some really bad even Capelli vibes.
I must say
Anyway,
though,
Look how they mistreated even Capelli in 1992
it is very reminiscent
compared
of
to
that.
how they're mismanaging Leclerc now.
I should also say though, well, yeah, Ferrari as a whole very much screwed Leclerc up in qualifying. He really didn't do himself many favours in the race. The incident was pretty silly, and he drove back far too fast with that puncture. Yeah, he really didn't do himself any favours in the
And
actual...
also using the wall at Rascasse as a turning post.
that wasn't very good. Anyway, we have one final point for today, and that is that the Nürburgring 24-hour entry list has been released.
Oh,
Absolutely. And according to Daily Sports Car, that name up, the entries split into 23 classes, with 34 entries in the GT3 class, in the GT3 based SP9 class. Along with the marks of Audi, BMW, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Lexus, Mercedes, Nissan, and Porsche, giving factory drivers, along with a sole entry from Glickenhaus in in the now SPX class.
Well, that's the prototype that you can drive home, isn't it?
Yes. 4 other classes have double figures. Those being SP3 and Cup 5 have 13. V4 and Cup 3 have 10. And the GT4 based SP8T and SP10 have a couple of new Aston Martins, factory backed. One of them has Darren Turner and Jamie Chadwick among the drivers.
Ah, W Series Championship leader Jamie Chadwick, yeah.
Yep. She will be in the 37 with Alex Brundle and Peter Kate. And Chris Harris will be running with Chris Goodwin and Christian Gebhardt in the 36.
Awesome.
And also for those that are fans of the Mighty Foxtail, the Mighty Foxtail is back at the ring.
Nice.
The lovely Opal Manta. Car number 122 with drivers Olaf Breckman, Peter Haas, Volker Strycek, and Jürgen Schulten. And they will be in the SP3 class. And yeah, it's basically going to be another class. It's going to be a classic event. I have to say, like, then again, it's always a classic at the Nürburgring. There's 160 cars on the entry list for the 24.
And I think on that quite positive note, I think it is now time to end. Now, we'll roll the credits in a couple of seconds, but I have a few people I'd like to thank. Thank you to Caitlin Penny Commentary and Chris Whitfield for joining me on the mic today. Thank you to @FinnickArrow on Instagram for doing the graphics for this episode, as with every other episode. Thank you to SRA Smoking Puppy for writing the Formula E article we had today. I'm sure Freya Edwards will be back in the next couple of episodes or so. And thank you to everybody tuning in today. So, tuning in, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
See you guys.
Ta-ra!